What is going on, Wolfpack Nation? Welcome to the 25th episode of Tuffy Talk. Thank y'all so much again for tuning in with us today. On today's episode, we're going to be doing the part two of our discussion with Justin Williams from the Wolfpacker about in-state athletics, kind of reviewing the 2020/2021 season. If you haven't seen part one, please click this link right here up in the top. And please go watch that first and then come back and check the second part out. Would really appreciate it. Again, just as a reminder, please remember if you haven't already, subscribe to us by hitting the button in the bottom right hand corner. That really helps support the channel, helps support us, and we would really appreciate that. Also, to make sure to follow us at Tuffy Talk Now, bang, on Twitter, Instagram. Please like this video and check out our other great content, whether it's interviews, discussions, gags such as the things NC State fans never say. A lot of great stuff. All NC State fans should definitely check out. So before we get started, though, we wanted to take a second to tell you about our sponsor, Flatlands Jessup Insurance Group, that has your whole world covered with agents at 5 offices throughout Eastern North Carolina to help you decide how much coverage you need, offering policies for home and auto, recreational vehicles, commercial, crop, health, life, and employee benefits. They are able to combine options to find a comprehensive solution that works for you. Flatlands Jessup protects the things you love so you can spend less time worrying and more time enjoying them. Find them on Facebook and Instagram at Flatlands Jessup. You can also visit their webpage at www.flatlandsjessup.com. So please make sure to go ahead and check them out. So with that being said, let's go and get this thing started. So yeah, I'm curious, Justin, to answer kind of make this question. I mean, where would you rank this accomplishment of beating Arkansas in the NC State history books?
I mean, I'd have to have everything out in front of me, but I
Yeah.
mean, off the cuff here, I mean, it has to be like a top 10 moment, maybe
Greatest
or top
greatest
10,
college, but sorry, go ahead.
top 10 athletic accomplishment
Oh, for
in
sure.
school history
Yeah.
potentially. I mean, it's not a national championship, so you can't compare it to that, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of the biggest accomplishments that the baseball program has certainly ever had. And, you just have to tip your cap to a guy like Elliott Avent, who's just so ingrained in NC State culture. I mean, NC State fans should have nothing but love and passion for that man because that's what he gives back. And he's been with the program for 25 years, and those players absolutely love him. They'll run through a brick wall for that guy.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. They're going to be out there competing for Avent.
And
They want for him bad.
Yeah, and I think anybody would. He deserves it. Like I think if they at some point I think they'd put Avent Park, Avent something at NC State.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And just about it's time. But my other thing was, let me ask you this question, and just an interesting debate. Would you rather have had State beat Duke for the AC championship and not gotten to the College World Series, or would you rather have it as the way it is now?
I'm actually really glad that you asked me that question because I posed that exact hypothetical to the message board during the ACC tournament. And I said, if you could take it right now.
I didn't know that.
Now, this is not with the benefit of hindsight, which we now know NC State is in Omaha. They made it to the College World Series. They got the upset. They lost the ACC championship. But during the ACC championship, with the excitement of that, I mean, at the time when the ACC tournament's going on, the conversation is the drought from the Big Four. The women's basketball team broke the drought of the Big Four, but now the conversation is the drought of the Big Three: baseball, men's basketball, and football.
The men's sports,
not winning a conference championship since the late '80s. I think it was 1989 to be exact.
87, I think
92, if I'm not mistaken.
Cut me off.
Oh,
either way, too long. 30 years.
30 years ago.
A long drought. And most of the responses I got back were actually that fans would rather have the ACC championship than get to Omaha. Because at the time, you're thinking, well, the pitching rotation is problematic. Like, that is why NC State is an underdog in Omaha, even though that they just beat the number one team in the country. The way Omaha is formatted, they have to win a regional and then a super regional.
Right.
Basically, to win the title.
Right.
Because they'll have to get through their pod, and then they'll have to win a 3-game series against the other pod winner.
Yep.
This team is probably built better for a super regional where you just have to win 2 out of 3 rather than a regional situation where, if State didn't win one of those first 2 games against Louisiana Tech or Alabama, they would have been in a real tough situation because then you're in the losers bracket and you're basically, fighting your way out of that. You have to win every game, and that takes pitching depth, and that's not what NC State has. So I kind of lost my train of thought here. Oh, the Omaha or ACC championship. Me personally, I mean, again, I try to stay unbiased, big J journalist here, right? But I would have taken the ACC championship, honestly, because I think that's a banner. Like and so is Omaha.
To me, it's like saying, would you rather win an ACC championship or make it to the Elite Eight for the national championship?
Well, so
it's like,
okay, let me ask you that back. If it were basketball, would you rather have the ACC championship or an Elite
Championship?
I honestly, I think if State had already won and this sounds bad. I mean, like we should be celebrating. I'm not saying it's just for discussion.
Right.
No. It's an interesting hypothetical.
Yeah.
I think it's just because State has been in a drought for so long. Just give us the one championship, and if we somehow made it to a super regional and lost to the number one team in the country, I wouldn't be upset with these guys.
Right.
Kind of thing.
It'd be a great season.
Season.
Right. Great season. Now, would you be upset if State made it to the national championship game and lost and you still didn't have? I mean, like, there's a whole lot of debate.
Yeah.
I just would personally, I'm kind of torn because I like the idea of saying, yeah, we may have just lost. We couldn't win one game against Duke.
See, let me kind
of. But we made it to the Elite Eight nationally.
And then look at Duke. They couldn't have both because they won the ACC championship and got bounced.
Do you think Duke's in a better spot than we are? Do you think Duke's in a better spot? I would say
I don't know. I think they're pretty happy with their ACC.
They're happy.
Yeah.
They made history, but
see,
it's just different. It's just different.
See, let me kind of make my point, and then maybe they can help yours a little bit. Because again, even me to this day, I mean, like, I was one that I was kind of on the fence with Avon just because of the fact that now he is 0-6 in ACC championship games, and that's obviously a huge glaring like number that's hard to look around. But I mean, obviously now, I mean, I even say, and Make and I said on Tuffy Talk Twitter that there's no haters for Coach Avon for the time for ever again, probably. I mean, just to go from 1-8 in the ACC to doing this, unbelievable, absolutely stellar, unbelievable. I mean, that guy will be here forever, and one day we'll have Avon Drive going right down NC State's campus. But again, so that's why for me, I think, and because we said this as well, that if Avon would have gotten that championship, there would be nothing else to talk about. There still is something to talk about, but it doesn't mean anything to me at this point. It doesn't. I mean, dude, that dude's been to so many regionals, super regionals, has taken us to Omaha twice in the past 8 years. I mean, he's done so much, and he loves NC State. He's brought in such great talent, such great players, such great representation of NC State. Love him. Not done talking to him. So, but that's why I would say AC championship, just like Megan was saying, get it off the books. Let's win the AC title, and let's get rid of. There's no reason now that you could even.
But having said that, the idea, I'm a little bit more torn, I think, than you guys are, because I think it's just a matter of the idea of having saying you were one of the top 8 teams in the nation versus you were the number one in your conference. That's just really good. I just kind of torn. I think if I had it, you had a gun to my head, I'd probably pick the AC championship.
It's a fair torn.
That monkey out the back.
It's fair,
but
it's the insanity of fandom.
Yeah,
exactly.
Fans always want what they can't have, don't we all? So
amen to that.
Yeah. But with the benefit of hindsight, I mean, what they're doing right now is so special too. They're both great. They're both great accomplishments, and the fact that they got one of them is worth celebrating.
Yep.
Yeah.
So now kind of diving into basketball. So, one of the big things that was going on recently was the talk about Manny Bates. And, one of the things that, maybe a lot of State fans, were kind of on the edge about is because he never really officially said, I'm entering the transfer portal. So there wasn't ever really a reason for him to say, I'm staying. But just kind of from all the signs of him being at team dinner, being at team meetings and all that jazz, it was like, okay, I think that he's sticking around. And I know from talking to a couple people that, I mean, a lot of people were saying how big that him sticking around was. I mean, just for the sake of the team next season, for the sake of even Keats himself. And so I wanted to kind of hand off to you, Justin, first, and make him follow after. I mean, I mean, how big I mean, do you think it really made that big of an impact? I mean, it really could have made or break the season next season. And also, too, even really, you know, affect or not affect, Keats's tenure possibly.
There's no question that his return is the biggest storyline of the offseason. Without Bates, you've got so many question marks in that front court. I mean, there's some young talent, but it's not proven. And frankly, the small sample sizes that we saw from last season weren't great. There's just raw talent there, and it's not ready to go. Maybe in case of emergency, it could be okay, but Manny Bates is like an all ACC caliber center. I mean, he's arguably the best defensive player in the ACC, and he's required size that NC State needs to compete. He's going to have a huge role on this team next year. I mean, behind Jericho Helms, he could be the second leading scorer. He has to be the leading rebounder. Obviously, the shot blocks will be there. We know Manny Bates is probably going to average 3 blocks a game at least during his college career. He's a fantastic shot blocker. As for the, did he save Keats's career at NC State? I mean, I think that's going out a little bit on a limb. I will say that this is an important season for Kevin Keats. I think there is some impatience with the fan base. That's clear. There's probably some deeper rooted issues with just the basketball season as a whole, or basketball program as a whole, that, isn't necessarily all of Kevin Keats's fault. But I will say that, he does need to put a competitive product on the court next season to feel a little bit better next offseason. And Manny Bates is, step 1, 2, and 3 of that process. I mean, the only other guy that would have been comparable to losing would be a Jericho Helms. And even then, I mean, you probably could have filled in gaps because there's other options on the wing. You could have turned Darion Sebron into that type of role. But I mean, I'm not trying to minimize Jericho Helms' role on this team. He will be the leading scorer on that team next season if he's healthy.
Sure, yeah.
And they need him to keep shooting lights out. But yeah, huge. And I will say about the rumors, I personally never bought into them. I didn't have to come out with a tweet, I don't think, to say that. I mean, I didn't come out and say these are not true, because at the time there were some, reputable people behind the scenes that did say that this was a thing. I mean, he was being pursued by other programs. That there's no secret there. But Manny Bates was like, of all the guys on that team last season, if you were to tell me, pick one guy that has the closest relationship with Kevin Keats, pick one guy that would be the last guy you'd ever think would transfer from the program, it'd be Manny Bates. Like, he loves the program. He loves being on this team. So, maybe there was just some reassurance that he needed over the offseason, but I don't think he needed to come out and say anything, because like you said, he didn't actually enter the transfer portal. So, sometimes these things can kind of spiral out of control with the rumor mill. And because he was such a big player, I think people got upset about it and probably made it a bigger deal than it actually was. But, it all worked out. Bates is not leaving, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, to me, it was the kind of, you really hit the nail on the head. He would be a big loss, but he's going to be a big need if they did lose him for some reason. And again, we're not one of the insiders. We're just, like I said, our whole premise is we're just two fans talking about it, trying to shed light on all of it. And I just saw it and I was like, oh my gosh, man, if that were to happen, that would be nuts. Because we don't have that kind of presence really inside. Is it going to be Duana? Is it going to be Jalen Gibson? Those guys, I don't know if they're ready yet. Maybe they will be. Maybe one of them steps up. You could argue that opportunity helps guys take the next step. Some guys.
It would have been an absolute gut punch.
Yes, it would have been an absolute gut punch. But like I said, that's not going to happen now, which is really awesome. But if that did happen, though, I would have thought State should have gotten to get a rebounder, like a really good rebounder, because you're not going to go find a blocker like Manny Bates is. You're going to probably, so if you can't block, you probably should go find someone who can rebound, because I don't think State's great at rebounding anyways, compared to the conference. Now I was going to say this to Manny Bates, his blocking. I saw this. I was just looking at this right here. I think people don't realize, maybe not realize how good of a blocker he is. I think they know he's a good blocker, but in perspective. So the all-time block leader, everybody should remember, is B.J. Anya. He was here from 2013-14 season through the 2016-17 season. All 4 years he was here. He ended up with 243 blocks in 4 years at state. So that's about like 60 or so, 61 blocks a season.
Yeah.
Manny right now is on track, I think, to pretty much he can get that and more if he were to stay all 4 seasons. Right now, he's at 147 blocks on 2 seasons. So he's less than 100 away with 2 seasons to go. And that means he averaged about a little over like 73 and a half blocks per season. Again, BJ averaged about 60 or so. He could, if he'd be on the same pace, I think maybe like halfway through his senior season to meet that record and then just pile on to maybe put it out of reach. That's how good of a blocker he is. And BJ was an awesome blocker. Mm-hmm. So just put in perspective, I wondered if there were any talks about him leaving, if that was like one little tidbit, like, hey, Manny, you have a chance to be the all-time block leader here if you just stuck with it. So, but that I don't know if that's it really doesn't matter what's the value to Manny to stay on the team or not. But I'm glad he's got the relationship with Keats. I'm glad he's staying. This team's going to really need him, and I will add this. If he gets injured during the season, it's going to really suck too. So there is still that possibility.
I'm knocking on wood over here, by the way.
Yeah, I think he could. I think State at some point maybe should have considered. I'm sure that maybe they did, trying to find somebody who could, again, be another post player, be their rebounder. Maybe they still are. I'm not aware of it, but I think it's all in all, I'm glad he's not leaving, to kind of go with what Justin was saying.
Yeah. No, I think for me, like the only reason why people, I'm sure, would even talk about, how it could have really affected Keats' tenure in State is just because of the fact that, just like you were saying, Justin, what would be the reason? Like, again, he loves NC State. He's obviously there's no shortage of playing time. Pretty much the playing time limit is just basically how long can you be out there without fouling out, basically. And he's playing in the ACC. What could possibly be the reason? That's the only reason why I would even consider that. But again, luckily enough, XL, don't have to worry about that. So now kind of switching, transitioning to the recruiting side. So I did want to kind of ask your opinion on this, Justin, because obviously these group of guys are coming in for this upcoming season. There's many of them. Some are transfers, some are high school recruits coming in. One of the biggest ones, which I know, I'm sure if State fans have heard of any one, they've heard of Dequavion Smith. That guy, him being the Max Preps NC Player of the Year. The accolades for that guy was just rolling in. So there's no doubt that guy is highlighted for sure. But with guys like Breon Pass, with a couple of transfers, like one from Virginia, I did want to kind of ask you, is there maybe one of the other recruits that maybe you're kind of saying, State fans aren't really talking a lot about, this guy, but you will be talking about him, once we're halfway through the season or so. Is there a certain recruit that maybe you would kind of put into that kind of bubble?
Well, to answer that specific question, the guy that comes to mind would be Ernest Ross, because he's the highest ranked of that 3-man 2021 class on the rivals.com database. But he's also from Florida, and the other 2 guys are from North Carolina. So it's understandable why, fans in Raleigh they see more about Dequavion Smith and Breon Pass, because if they really wanted to, they could drive an hour, east or west from Raleigh and go see either of those guys. Well, not anymore because they're now in Raleigh, but if they wanted to, when they were being recruited. But Ernest Ross, he's a power forward that, isn't going to be necessarily a conventional big right away. We'll see what type of weight he's able to put on once he gets to NC State. He's about 6'7", 6'8", might even be 6'9". I'm drawing a blank.
I thought he was 6'9". I think he's 6'9". He's 6'9". Looking it up. Yeah, he is.
I'm not trying to undersell his length or anything. I know he's a skinny guy at the moment. Probably a guy that's going to want to play more from the perimeter, at least in his younger years. We'll see what he turns into. He could be like a really nice fit in that 4 position that Keats likes to have, because he likes to have a guy that's able to play from the perimeter and stretch the floor a little bit at that 4 position, like you see with the Jericho Helms. I'm curious to see how good of a shooter Ernest Ross is. I mean, frankly, I know the least about him just because I haven't been to Florida to see him play in person. I have seen Dequavion Smith and Breon Pass play in person and kind of have a good idea as to, what type of role you could expect for them next season. They're both going to be really good players, and I think they could be, great multi-year type careers at NC State. Both of those guys are really good kids too. But yeah, Ernest Ross would be that guy. He's going to wear number 24 too, so there's a lot of pressure with that.
Oh, it's over
NC
now.
State
it's
number
over.
24 jersey.
Yeah, it's over. I'll tell you what, that was a great pick. That's probably who I would have picked. He is, like I said, he's 6'9". That guy, if you guys think, I think if you like somewhat, if you like Smith, Dequavion Smith, think of Ernest Ross as a taller, a little bit longer version of him. Maybe not as athletic, but he's athletic in his own right. Like, he's a very athletic dude. And I think one thing that's also kind of interesting is he's not, like, there's not a lot of film on him. I mean, there's like a couple of spotty clips from a couple high school games, but not the kind of videos you would typically not the big highlight videos. And if there are any, I think I saw one from like a year ago. So you don't really get to see his most up-to-date stuff, how he's developed. But it's not a lot out there for him. But when the clips you do see, you can see why he is got that 4-star premise to him. And he's going to – I like that pick. I like that pick a lot, especially when we, could use a post player or a guy who can be an athletic 4. I don't know how athletic – I'll put it this way. I think he may be more athletic than Duana and Gibson if he were to come in right away, I think, potentially. I don't know if he'd be I don't know where he'd be skill-wise or polished to his game, but he looks really good. I will say this, too. I think the transfers we got from Providence, Greg Gant, who's from Fayetteville, and Casey Morcell from Virginia. I think people look at those numbers. Maybe we talked about this last time you were on, Justin. I don't recall. It seems to be ringing a bell. People look at those numbers and they see, I think Gant had he has 8 points per game coming out of Providence. Something lower, 4. Is it 4?
They weren't good numbers, but
right.
But that's, I mean, it just didn't work out at those programs, and we'll see if they work out at NC State.
Yeah, and that's my point was to kind of put that in perspective. Like it is a lot about system. And one guy I think of in that regard, and I'm not saying he'll be like this. I don't know if fans remember a few years ago, Mariel Shayok, who was at UVA. He averaged about 7, 8, 9 points at UVA. Everybody knows UVA, very defensive-minded. You run the scheme. It's not, I would say, as much of a player's offense or players. I think you just run the plays and very system-oriented. It's just different style of play. Mariel Shea got 8 points. He then transferred to Iowa State, where he then became an 18 points per game scorer the very next season he was eligible to play. So he immediately jumped up. And I don't think he dramatically just became a dominant, athletic scorer like the light bulb just went off. I think a lot of it was just due to the fit. So maybe Gant and maybe Morcell can end up being, seeing notable jumps. Maybe they become, for the first time in their career, a double-digit scorer. Maybe not 15, 16, 17 points per game. Maybe like 10, 11, 12. I could use a certainly 10-point score per game, 9-point score per game, and coming off the bench, playing a few minutes. I would take that. I want him to be better, yeah. But I don't think he's going to be like, oh, my gosh, this guy, whenever he comes in, he's a liability. We're stuck in the mud and offense. I don't think it's going to be like that. So, I see those guys. There's a lot of hope there. But the guy who I think particularly who psychs me as an impact player is Ross.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with Ross for sure. Again, just because of the mostly that I think that's just like you were saying, the position we need the most heading into next season, or at least need the most help in. Because obviously guard, I think we're set. So definitely with the post player side, I think that's where we were definitely going to need it for sure. But I guess one other kind of quick question as well, which is something I was going to ask you, Justin, because I am actually not really 100% sure on this. We haven't heard anything about Devin Daniels, have we?
He wore number 24, so I
Yeah.
would say that Ernest Ross taking that number is pretty much as official as it's gonna get. He's not gonna come back.
I got you. I never heard official statement, so
I
I'm
mean,
curious.
Yeah.
I think
it wasn't
kind of-
one, but
I think
yeah.
it was kind of assumed, and it was one of those things like
Everybody knows.
Manny Bates didn't enter the transfer portal, so he didn't have to say he was coming back. So
Right.
Devin Daniels went through senior day,
True.
was a redshirt senior, so he doesn't have to say, I'm coming back unless he is coming back. So
True. Okay.
I kind of saw the thing.
What's he gonna say?
Like,
Peace out.
Deuces, folks.
Well, I kind of thought it was gonna. I thought this thing was like, why is he leaving? People are like, he could come back, recover, be great. Part of it, I wanted this too. Is like, one, he's just done with school, I think. Yeah. But I think part of it is he's ready to make some money. That's another thing. But I think part of it is when you kind of see your buddies you came in with kind of all leaving if your buddies start leaving the party, how much longer do you really want to stay? Yeah. And I think when he sees Braxton Beverly leaving, and he sees DJ leave,
it's like that 5th or 6th year senior that's still at the same party as the freshman. Like,
right? Yeah, it's like, okay,
probably time for me to move on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is fair. It's kind of like, man, kind of like a what if, shoot, wish we could have had him, but. It's kind of like, okay, I'm kind of done here.
Yeah, right. It's the circle of life, right? So,
yep.
So, so now we're going to kind of transition here and kind of finish up here with some of the other highlights of some of the other sports that have been just amazing this season. Obviously, highlighted recently by track and field has just exploded during the season. Highlighted by the girls' side, Ellie Hinnans winning the 5,000 meter national title, becoming a first-team All-American. Savannah Shaw being a second-team All-American. Kelsey Chimmel, first-team All-American. Hannah Steelman, second-team All-American. Then from the boys' side, you got Ian Shanklin, second-team All-American. I mean, so again, because I know from a cross-country perspective that a lot of fans know that they have won ACC titles, but now have officially gotten really to that national level. And highlighted also too, because you kind of add in, because this is track and field, but you even add in cross country, how the women's team finished second at the national championships, and by a hair too. They almost won it all. And that to me just is a glaring of, oh my gosh, this is literally an all-around pack. Seriously, again, it's everything is at the national level. Even like I even have here. So wrestling finished a program high 6th place in nationals. Gymnastics back-to-back conference championships. Men's golf advancing to the NCAA championship. Women's tennis making it to the program's first ever Final Four this season. Men's swimming finished 8th at nationals, and then women's swimming finished a program high 2nd at nationals. I pretty much got to leave it to you as this. I think it is, but I wanted to get y'all's opinion on it. Do you think this is, the best that NC State athletics has ever been from top to bottom? Literally, I can name 9 different teams that are not only competing right at the top of the ACC belt, but even on the national side as well. You could easily go to almost any game and see an ACC contender team and a national contender team, which is something that not a lot of teams can say. Maybe only a handful of athletics, programs could say. So, Justin, I want to kind of leave it to you first and then make you follow up right after.
Well, I'll give you a short answer. Yes, it is top to bottom. They're going to have the highest ever finish that the program has ever had in the Directors Cup, which gives the weighted value towards all of the major Division I sports. And then based on the point system, you get ranked. I think the last Directors Cup standings that came out, they weren't going to do it. And then they reversed that and said they were, because they initially canceled it because there were so many, sports and programs that were canceled this year. So there is a smidge of an asterisk, I guess, this year, because some programs didn't compete, but that's not to mitigate the success at all, because I think, all things considered, State would have had a historical finish no matter what, but they were ranked 13th in the last Directors Cup. I don't know off the top of my head what the best ever finish was previously, but think about it from like football standards. A really, really good NC State football season, they finished the season ranked 20 to 25 in football. You could probably, apply that to the Director's Cup, maybe 2025 is the best ever finish. I don't know. I don't have that stat in front of me, but 13th. I mean, that means that you are one of the best 13 programs, top to bottom. And to consider what NC State does with its budget, compared, like, it is a Power 5 budget. It is a big budget. NC State does, have a lot to manage, and they have a Power 5 football program. But in the scheme of the Power 5 system, NC State is middle at best to below middle in terms of what type of revenue we're talking about, like compared to the Texases of the world or the Michigans of the world, Ohio States, the list goes on. They're in that neighborhood with way less resources.
Way less.
It's just spectacular, what top to bottom these programs have been able to do. And you got to be really happy if you're an NC State fan. I mean, I know a lot of people, the biggest sports being football, men's basketball, and, sometimes, I mean, football had a really good season. Basketball was so-so, I'd say. It got off the rails there a little bit in January, but, that doesn't represent the entirety of what the athletic program is. And you also have to tip your cap to former athletic director Debbie Yao, because she was the one that invested so much in these other sports. And you want to, I mean, people want to see success. That's what college sports is all supposed to be all about, is giving people opportunities to compete at the highest level and find success at the highest level. And, no matter if that's with a tennis racket in your hands or, in a swimming pool or with a football helmet, success is success. So you got to celebrate it.
Yeah. And I was looking at why you're mentioning it, because you didn't know I didn't know either what the largest one was. 2019, they finished 15th, and that was the highest to that point. I don't know what it was last year, but I imagine State's going to be better than 15th this year.
So you're seeing upward trajectory too.
Right.
So it's continued growth.
Right. And so I would say, late in the game, top to bottom as a whole athletic program, I would agree. I mean, the Director Cup standings are proof enough. It's like the ultimate test to evaluate that with that question.
Yep.
So, yeah, I would say yes. I really think with Ellie Hennis, though, is going to get overlooked by what NC State's baseball team has done because it's so popular. But she won a national championship at an individual event by herself. I mean, people, you realize that? You say she can say I won a national championship for my school by myself, basically. Granted, there's a team sport to it, but she, I looked it up. She, I think her time was 15 minutes and 28 seconds for 5,000 meters. Really good, really good. I think in a previous event she had ran at 10 seconds faster the same race back in April, I think is when it was. I know the world record's like 12 minutes and some change, but she was number one. She won a national championship, and I think fans need to give her the ultimate praise that we would give a baseball team, a football team, whatever. They would win an ACC championship, let alone a national championship. That girl deserves it. One thing that's kind of neat, I noticed, just kind of side note, she's from Cary. I know people have talked to, but I grew up in Cary. I know Leighton did too. So she's kind of from right there in our backyard. And she won that event. I know they already had talked about the fact that her mom is the coach for track and field, women's track and field. And she was the last one to win that same race 30 years ago. She won it in the exact same arena too.
Yep.
So it's poetic. It really is. It's cool. But I can tell you, I was talking to a coworker of mine. I said, she said that her and her family were going to go to Oregon, which is apparently, like they say, it's like the best track and field.
That's the Mac Daddy
venue. Yeah. So she said that we're going to go there in a few weeks just to go see the USA team do the thing up there. And with the family, I was like, wow, it's awesome. And then I mentioned, I just, I don't know if you heard this, but State had just had a girl win the national championship. She goes, oh, hell, I didn't even say her name. She goes, oh, Ellie Hennis. She goes, that girl is unreal, because she runs with her family often. I think they run at Olmsted Park in Raleigh. And they said, yeah, we see her run in Raleigh all the time. And she's just incredible. And I don't know any of the – I mean, I don't know. It's just a thought. Like, I think people need to give that girl all the credit she deserves, all the praise she needs. She could go down as one of the greatest athletes in NC State history. People just don't recognize that because it's not a football or baseball or basketball event.
Yep. Yeah,
she could be one of the greatest athletes, considered one of the greatest ever to do it.
possibly. I mean, she's in that conversation.
100%.
Athlete.
Yeah. So
And we have to mention Catherine Burkhoff and Sophie Hansen of the women's swimming team winning national titles too. I mean,
Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah.
But three national champions.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
in one season, and the NC State women's swim team wins the whole thing. So
Yeah.
I mean, crazy.
No, what again? I mean, I again, I mean, we could go on and on in terms of all the great things that have happened during this athletic year. But I mean, again, I mean, the biggest thing, which I think you even said, Justin, is that basically every team that has done this much, you can guarantee there's probably, a team that probably finished lower than them that has, like, for wrestling, like has like an Iowa level of facilities. That's like the Mac Daddy, or like for track and field, it has like an Oregon, Mac Daddy of facilities. And, we're doing all this with way less than they have. And to accomplish this much really is hats off to the coaching staff, hats off to the players, Debbie Buke, Oregon. I mean, even Chancellor Woodson. I mean, all the way from top to bottom, Wolfpack Nation, the Wolfpack Club, all that jazz. Hats off to all of them. And so it just gets us all excited for what's to come. So finishing it off, one quick question, not necessarily going deep into it, but just wanted to kind of just like a, this, that, or this kind of question. So big three: football, basketball, baseball. Which one's going to win an ACC title first? Justin, I'll hand off to you. Answer first.
Man, that's a tough question. I don't want to expand too much.
No, yeah.
Because as I texted Leighton, I'm getting pretty hungry. I haven't had dinner yet. So, but maybe my brain needs food. Football's tough ass because you got to beat Clemson.
Yep.
Basketball, it's basketball. You got to win a whole tournament.
Yeah.
Baseball makes probably the most sense, but they're going to be starting from scratch next year.
Yeah.
I mean, most of this lineup's going to be gone.
Yeah.
I'm going to say basketball.
All right.
Wishful thinking.
Like it. Macon?
I'm going to say baseball. I think it's I want to say it's harder to do in other sports. I will say you could argue that baseball is, because you have to win each series to do it. But I think baseball, I think State's in a better position in the conference in terms of where they're at in baseball, generally speaking, to do it. They've been there multiple times. State has not been to a championship game in basketball and football in a very long time. So, the last time, the closest one they came to, I think, It was either basketball making it to the semifinals or NC State losing to Maryland back in 2011, I think is what it was, before they could make it to football.
Yep.
They could almost did it, couldn't do it. State's been there in baseball multiple times. I'm going to go with baseball.
Yeah. And then I'll finish off. I'm kind of pushing myself to say football, but I don't want to do the trifecta, but you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to stick to it. Trifecta. Football, baby. Because again, I mean,
you're going to get judged by so many people now.
Oh, I'm sure. But again, I mean, just like Justin said, it's a complete toss-up. Who knows? But again, it's just a theoretical thing. So I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go football. We'll see who's right. Hey, we'll hold on to this clip and we'll see who's right whenever it does happen. So thank you all again so much again for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. Again, thank you, Justin, for tuning in. Please make sure again to go check out the Wolfpacker, and Justin, make sure. I'll hand it over to you real quick to do your little plug real quick to make sure it's.
Appreciate it, Leighton. Yeah. It's promo code PAC60 if you like what I had to say. If you want to read more premium content, news, and analysis over at thewolfpacker.com, use that promo code PAC60 for a free 60-day trial.
Perfect. Love it. And then also too, for our side, if you guys wouldn't mind, please subscribing to us. It really helps support the channel and support us by hitting the button bottom right-hand corner. Please like this video. Check out our other NC State content if you haven't seen already. And follow us at Tuffy Talk Now on Twitter and Instagram. Got a lot of great stuff here in the works, and definitely don't make sure to miss out on any of it. And so thank you all again for your time. And as always, go Pack.